Have you ever sat in your car or at your kitchen table, looking down at your hands, and realized you have absolutely nothing left to give? It is not just that you are tired from a long, demanding week. It is a profound, quiet stillness where the battery isn't just low, it feels completely broken, like a mechanism that has finally run out of gears to turn. You look at the demands of your daily life, the people who rely on your warmth and presence, the goals you use to chase with so much passion, and all you feel is a heavy, flat neutrality. It is the terrifying realization that if someone asked you for just one more drop of your time, your attention, or your care, you might just break right then and there. We live in a world that praises the grind, a culture that constantly whispers that if we just push a little harder, organize our schedules a little better, or wake up an hour earlier, we can fix the exhaustion. We are flooded with messages telling us to optimize, to try a new routine, or to force ourselves through the fatigue. But when you are truly depleted, that advice feels like being asked to run a marathon with 2 broken ankles. It feels like an insult to the deep pain you are carrying. You start to wonder how you even got to this place. You look back and remember being a person who felt genuine excitement, who had vibrant passions and a bright, natural spark. Now, just deciding what to make for dinner or choosing what to wear feels like climbing a massive mountain without any ropes. When you reach this level of emptiness, even the things you used to love start to feel like obligations. You see a message from a dear friend, and instead of feeling warmth, you feel a wave of dread because you don't have the emotional energy to reply. You look at a hobby that used to bring you peace, and it just looks like another task on an endless list. This is what it means to be empty. It is the feeling of being a ghost in your own life, moving through the motions, repeating the words you are supposed to say, but feeling completely disconnected from the world around you. You watch other people laughing, planning, and moving forward, and you feel like you are stuck behind a thick pane of glass, entirely alone in your stillness. You might find yourself crying unexpectedly over something tiny. A spilled cup of water on the counter, a minor change in plans, or a red light when you are already running late. Those tears aren't actually about the water or the traffic light. They are the overflow of a heart that has been holding too much for far too long. They are the physical manifestation of your spirit saying, I can't carry this weight for another step. You try to swallow the tears. You try to shake it off and tell yourself to be strong. But the body knows the truth. The body remembers every single time you said yes when your soul was screaming no. It is incredibly heavy to carry the secret of your own exhaustion. You worry that if you show how empty you really are, you will disappoint the people who depend on you. You worry that you will be seen as weak, or that the life you worked so hard to build will somehow fall apart if you stop moving for even a single day. So you keep pushing, dragging your feet through the heavy sand of each hour, hoping that tomorrow will somehow be different. But tomorrow is just another today unless we stop and look at the truth of our condition. If you are standing in that quiet, empty space right now, sitting in the dark of your room, or staring blankly at a wall, I want you to take a deep, slow breath and listen to me closely. You are not failing. You are not weak. You are not broken. And you have not lost your way forever. You are just empty. Your system has simply done exactly what it was designed to do when it runs out of fuel. It has slowed down to protect you. Empty is not a permanent sentence. It is a temporary state of being. And as uncomfortable and frightening as it feels right now, empty is a place you can rebuild from. It is the blank canvas, the quiet ground, the place where you finally stop spending what you do not have and begin the slow, gentle process of returning to yourself. We carry a quiet, heavy myth inside ourselves that we must always be soi, like a rock that nothing can erode. We think that to be reliable, to be a good partner, a dedicated worker, or a supportive friend means we cannot falter. We convince ourselves that our value is tied directly to our strength, and that if we show a single crack, the whole structure of our lives will come crashing down. So when the exhaustion hits, when it starts to seep into our bones and cloud our minds, we don't stop. We don't ask for help, and we don't take a step back. Instead, we mask it. We put on a familiar, practiced smile for a colleague in the hallway. We say, "I'm doing well, just a bit busy," to a friend who asks. And we keep moving through our daily routines, like clockwork, pretending the engine isn't smoking under the hood. Think about the sheer amount of life force it takes to pretend you are okay when you are actually falling apart inside. It is exhausting enough to be exhausted, but it is doubly draining to expend your very last drop of energy trying to hide that exhaustion from the world. We treat our minds and our bodies like machines that should never require maintenance, ignoring the subtle, persistent warning signs that our system is failing. We ignore the sudden, sharp flash of irritability over a misplaced set of keys, the constant, tight tension in our shoulders that never goes away even when we lie down, or the way we find ourselves staring at a blank wall for 20 minutes without realizing any time has passed at all. We tell ourselves these are just minor glitches, things we can get past if we just make it to the weekend. Carl Jung once remarked, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." When we look closely at what we are actually doing in our lives, rather than what we tell ourselves we are doing, the picture becomes painfully clear. We see that we are spending our remaining precious resources on maintaining an illusion of strength for the benefit of everyone else, rather than using that energy to actually preserve and protect ourselves. We are performing the role of a healthy, functioning human being, while the person inside that performance is starving for rest. We cross items off our lists, we show up to appointments, and we meet deadlines. But we are completely absent from the experience because all our effort is consumed by the simple act of holding ourselves together. This illusion doesn't just deceive the people around us, it deceives us too. We become so good at playing the strong one that we begin to judge our own vulnerability as a fault. When we feel the urge to lie down and cry, or when we realize we simply cannot answer another phone call, we feel a sudden rush of shame. We tell ourselves we are being dramatic, or that others have it worse, using guilt as a whip to force our tired limbs to keep moving. But you cannot shame a depleted spirit into finding new energy. You cannot berate an empty well until water magically appears. The performance of constant strength is a trap, a cycle that demands more and more from you while giving you absolutely nothing in return. The first real step to rebuilding your spirit isn't finding a quick fix for the problem, nor is it discovering some hidden reserve of willpower to push through the wall. It is the quiet, incredibly brave moment where you choose to admit that the illusion has finally run its course. It is looking at the mask you've been wearing, the one that says, "I can handle everything. I am perfectly fine," and gently setting it down. It is admitting to yourself, in the privacy of your own mind, that you are tired, that you are overwhelmed, and that you cannot keep pretending otherwise. This admission isn't a sign of defeat. It is the moment you stop fighting reality and finally begin to honor the truth of what your body and your heart are begging you for. To begin the true process of rebuilding, we have to allow ourselves to drop the heavy armor we've been carrying for weeks, months, or maybe even years. It feels incredibly terrifying to do this. We worry that if we let our guard down, even for a single moment, everything around us will instantly collapse. We fear the judgment of the world, but even more deeply, we fear our own judgment. We are so afraid of what we will see if we stop fighting. We worry that if we lay down our weapons, we will find out that we are fundamentally broken, lazy, or incapable of handling the life we've built. So, we keep the armor strapped tightly to our chests, even when the weight of it is crushing our ribs and making it hard to take a full breath. But consider what happens when you finally stop fighting the exhaustion and just sit completely still with it. There is a strange, painful, and beautiful relief in finally admitting, "I cannot do this today." It is the exact moment you stop swimming with all your might against a powerful, rushing current and just allow yourself to float. It is the moment you stop trying to control the storm and instead allow yourself to just let it rain. Letting the armor fall doesn't mean you are giving up on your life, your dreams, or the people who love you forever. It does not mean you are walking away from your responsibilities or throwing your hands up in permanent defeat. It simply means you are acknowledging reality. You are admitting that you are a human being, made of flesh and blood, not iron. You cannot pour from an empty cup, no matter how much you wish you could. And continuing to try only damages the beautiful, fragile vessel itself. Think about how much courage it takes to look at your life and say, "I need a break." It is much easier to keep running on autopilot, letting the momentum of your busy schedule carry you forward, than it is to stand up and say, "No more." When you drop the armor, you are choosing to be honest with yourself. You are choosing to stop treating your body like an enemy that needs to be conquered, and instead treating it like a friend that needs to be held. You might feel a wave of intense sadness when you first let go. You might find yourself sitting on the floor of your bedroom, weeping for the version of you that had to be so strong for so long. Let those tears come. They are the sound of the ice melting inside you. They are the first signs of life returning to a frozen landscape. When the armor comes off, you begin to realize that the world does not actually end when you take a step back. The people who truly love you will not abandon you just because you are tired. In fact, they might feel a sense of relief because your vulnerability finally gives them permission to show their own cracks, too. And for the things that do slide or fall behind, because you took a moment to breathe, let them fall. If a task or a project cannot wait for you to recover your health, then it was never sustainable to begin with. Your life is not a business to be managed. It is an experience to be felt. By letting the armor fall, you are finally clearing away the heavy, suffocating noise of who you thought you had to be, making a small, quiet space for the person you actually are to come out of hiding and finally rest. When we are completely empty, a side of ourselves emerges that we might not like very much. It is the part of us that feels deeply resentful of the people we love most, intensely frustrated by the simplest daily tasks, or completely detached from the things that used to bring us immense joy. You might find yourself snapping at a family member over a minor question, or feeling a wave of irritation when a friend reaches out just to say hello. It's easy to feel an overwhelming sense of guilt over these dark reactions. You sit in the quiet after an outburst or after ignoring a call, and you think, "I shouldn't feel this way. I have so much to be grateful for. Why am I being so cold? Why am I so angry?" You start to believe that this bitter, resentful version of you is who you truly are deep down, and that thought is terrifying. But this darkness and resentment are not signs that you are a bad person, nor do they mean you have lost your capacity for kindness. They are emotional alarm systems. They are boundaries that your mind is trying to violently set because you refused to set them yourself with words. When you ignore your own needs for too long, your spirit goes into a defensive survival mode, and it uses irritation to push the world away so you can finally get a moment of peace. This brings us to a profound insight from Carl Jung, who wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. When we turn this insight inward and apply it to our own exhaustion, we realize that our internal irritation and bitterness are pointers. They are trying to show us exactly where we have been bleeding out our energy. If you feel a sharp pang of resentment when someone asks you for a small favor, it isn't because they are being terribly demanding. It's because you have entirely neglected your own right to say no. You are angry at them for asking because you don't trust yourself to protect your own time. Your exhaustion is holding up a dark, honest mirror, forcing you to look at the areas where you have repeatedly abandoned your own well-being for the sake of keeping the peace or pleasing everyone else. Meeting this shadow side of exhaustion requires an immense amount of self-compassion. Instead of pushing the anger down or drowning yourself in shame, you have to sit with it and ask it what it needs. When you feel that cold, detached numbness creeping in, try not to fight it. Recognize it as your mind's way of pulling the curtains shut because the lights have been blinding for too long. The shadow isn't there to destroy you. It is there to show you where you are wounded. It is telling you, in the only way it knows how, that the current way you are living is costing you too much. It is an invitation to look at your patterns, to see where you have traded your authenticity for approval, and to finally realize that saving yourself is just as important as saving anyone else. Many times, our deepest depletion doesn't come from doing too much, but from doing too little of what actually feeds our core. We spend years building a life based entirely on external expectations, taking the safe job that satisfies our parents, playing the expected, accommodating role in our relationships, or checking off the endless boxes that society dictates as successful. We look around one day and realize we have built a beautiful, pristine house, but we don't actually feel at home inside it. We have accumulated all the right badges of achievement, but the person wearing them feels entirely hollowed out. You find yourself looking at your own reflection in the bathroom mirror, wondering who that person is staring back at you, and where the dreaming child you used to be went. This internal division creates a massive, silent drain on our vital energy. It takes an astronomical amount of effort to sustain a version of yourself that doesn't fully align with who you actually are. Every single day, you are forcing yourself to wear a costume that is too tight, speaking words that aren't truly yours, and investing your heart into things that don't matter to you. That friction, the constant rubbing between your true self and the persona you present to the world, generates a quiet friction that eventually burns through all your reserves. You aren't just tired from your chores. You are tired from the exhausting labor of hiding your essence. Carl Jung captured this tragic human dilemma beautifully when he stated, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." When you find yourself completely depleted, standing in the ruins of your energy with nothing left to give, it is often a profound sign that the old way of living, the old identity you worked so hard to build, is no longer sustainable. The exhaustion is not an enemy. It is a hard stop. It is your system throwing the emergency brake because it refuses to let you drive any further down a road that is leading you away from your own soul. It is a demand that you pause in the quiet and ask the questions you've been running from. Whose life am I actually living? Who am I trying to please? And how much of my true, vibrant self have I left behind in the dark just to make others comfortable? It hurts to realize that you have been complicit in your own abandonment. It brings a heavy sense of grief to look back at the years spent chasing things that didn't actually feed your spirit. You might feel a profound sadness for the unlived life, the creative projects you put on a shelf, the honest words you swallowed, the boundaries you never dared to draw because you were too afraid of being disliked. But this grief is necessary. It is the beginning of waking up. The total depletion you feel right now is the price of the unlived life, but it is also the threshold of a new one. It is the moment where the pain of staying the same finally becomes greater than the fear of changing. You are being given a painful but sacred opportunity to clear away the rubble of who you were supposed to be, so you can finally begin the beautiful, honest work of discovering who you actually are. When the mind is completely overwhelmed and the spirit is entirely empty, trying to think your way out of the problem usually just leads to more anxiety. You cannot analyze your way back to wholeness. You cannot fix a broken, exhausted heart by looping through the same worried thoughts, analyzing your mistakes, or trying to map out a perfect strategy for the next 6 months. Your mind is the very thing that is tired. Asking it to solve its own exhaustion is like asking a sinking ship to pull itself out of the water. Instead, the path back to life begins with the simplest, most grounded movements. It requires returning to the physical reality of the present moment, stepping out of the noisy cage of your thoughts and into the quiet comfort of your physical body. Think about the last time you truly noticed the warmth of the sun hitting your face as you stood near a window on a cold morning, or the specific, soft texture of the fabric of your favorite sweater against your skin. When we are deeply depleted, we live entirely in our heads, constantly looping through worries, tracking responsibilities, and replaying conversations. We look at the world, but we don't actually see it. To rebuild, we must gently pull our awareness back down into our bodies. It means taking a slow, deliberate walk down the street without a phone in your hand or music in your ears, just listening to the crunch of gravel under your shoes or the sound of the wind moving through the leaves above you. It means drinking a simple glass of water and actually feeling the coldness as it clears your throat, focusing entirely on that single sensation. These small sensory experiences might seem insignificant when you are carrying such a massive weight, but they are the tiny stepping stones that lead us out of the thick fog of burnout. When you focus entirely on the taste of a warm piece of bread, the smell of a candle, or the feeling of cold water on your tired eyes, you are giving your overtaxed mind a brief, beautiful moment of absolute rest. You are anchoring yourself to the earth. You are reminding your system that right now, in this exact second, you are safe. You do not have to solve your entire life in this moment. You only have to experience the texture of the blanket beneath your hands. We often overlook these tiny moments because we are looking for a grand gesture or a massive breakthrough to save us. But healing doesn't happen in a giant leap. It happens in the quiet accumulation of tiny, grounded choices. It is choosing to sit on your porch for 5 minutes, just watching the rain fall, without trying to be productive, without checking anything, and without planning the next hour. It is allowing yourself to just be a creature that exists in a physical world. Every time you bring your attention back to your senses, you are chipping away at the heavy wall of isolation that exhaustion builds around you. You are slowly, gently waking up your nervous system, letting it know that it is allowed to come out of survival mode and return to the sweetness of being alive. We are conditioned to believe that silence and stillness are wasteful, almost like a sin against our own potential. If we happen to find ourselves with a free hour, we feel an immediate, intense internal pressure to fill it, to read an educational book, listen to an informative podcast, or plan our next financial move. We have been taught that our worth is measured by our output. So when we sit still, a nagging voice of guilt starts to whisper that we are falling behind, that we are being lazy, or that we are wasting precious time. But a depleted spirit doesn't need more information, more growth, or more self-improvement. It desperately needs empty space. It needs moments where nothing is being processed, nothing is being analyzed, and nothing is being learned. Imagine a field that has been farmed season after season, pushed to its absolute limits without a single break. Year after year, it is expected to yield crops, to be fertile, and to produce abundance. Eventually, the soil becomes completely barren, stripped of its life, unable to grow anything of value because it has been bled dry. The farmer knows that no amount of fertilizer or forcing will change this. The field must be allowed to lie fallow, untouched, quiet, weed-grown, and seemingly unproductive, so the nutrients can naturally and quietly return to the dark earth. You are no different from that field. Giving yourself permission to do absolutely nothing for an afternoon is not laziness. It is a vital, sacred act of preservation. It is allowing your internal soil to regenerate away from the demands of the world. Think about how rare it is to just sit in a room and let the room be quiet. No background noise, no television playing in another room, no notifications lighting up the screen on your desk. At first, that level of quiet can feel deeply uncomfortable. It can feel like a vacuum that threatens to swallow you, because when the outside noise stops, the inner noise can sound incredibly loud. But if you sit with that discomfort for just a little while, the static begins to settle. The quiet landscape ceases to feel like a void and starts to feel like a sanctuary. It becomes a place where your nervous system can finally drop its guard, realizing that no one is asking for anything. No one is evaluating your performance, and nothing is required of you except to exist. We need to learn to love the gray, quiet days of our lives. The moments where we aren't achieving anything spectacular, but simply maintaining our breath. You do not need to justify your existence by being constantly useful to others or constantly working on yourself. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is take a long nap, stare out the window at the shifting clouds, or spend an hour watching dust motes dance in a sliver of sunlight. These are not empty spaces. They are full spaces. They are full of peace, full of recovery, and full of the gentle grace your spirit needs to heal. By embracing the quiet landscape, you are telling yourself that you are valuable just as you are, even when you are producing absolutely nothing at all. Rebuilding your life from a state of total depletion does not require making massive, sweeping changes overnight. You do not need to quit your job tomorrow, pack your bags, or move to a different country to find peace. When we are exhausted, we often crave these giant escapes because the weight we are carrying feels so heavy that we think only a massive explosion can free us. But the real, lasting transformation happens in the quiet, microscopic choices you choose to make each day. It happens in the tiny, almost invisible boundaries that you draw around your remaining energy, protecting it like a flickering flame in a harsh wind. It looks like pausing for 3 long seconds before answering a request, giving yourself a moment to check your internal dashboard to see if you actually have the capacity to say yes. It looks like deciding that after 7 in the evening, you are no longer available for non-urgent problems, closing your laptop, and letting your mind slowly wind down in the dim light of your room. These small actions might feel incredibly uncomfortable at first. Your heart might race when you type a polite text saying, "I can't help with this right now." And you might feel a sudden rush of worry about letting someone down or being judged as unreliable. But every single time you set a small boundary, you are sending a powerful, healing message to your subconscious. My well-being matters, and I am responsible for protecting it. Think about how many times you have given away your peace just to avoid an awkward moment. Someone asks you for something you don't have the energy to give, and instead of saying no, you say yes, because the discomfort of saying no feels unbearable in that second. But that quick fix costs you hours of resentment and exhaustion later on. When you are completely empty, you have to realize that saying yes to someone else almost always means saying no to yourself. It means taking the tiny bit of energy you needed for your own recovery and handing it over to keep someone else comfortable. You cannot afford to do that anymore. You have to become a fierce guardian of your peace, even if it means people have to wait for you, and even if it means being misunderstood for a little while. Setting boundaries isn't about building a cold wall to shut the world out forever or punishing the people around you. It is about drawing a clear line that allows you to love others without completely losing yourself in the process. It is saying, I care about you, but I also have to care about me. Start with the small things. Leave the phone in another room while you eat. Tell a colleague you will get back to them tomorrow instead of answering right away. Let the call go to voicemail when you are sitting on the couch trying to breathe. These microscopic acts of courage are the bricks you use to rebuild the broken walls of your spirit. They are the evidence that you are finally choosing to side with yourself, refusing to let your life be completely swallowed by the demands of the world. As the deep fog of exhaustion begins to lift, even just a tiny bit, you start to see the landscape of your life with a new, quiet clarity. You begin to understand that healing isn't about erasing the parts of you that became broken, nor is it about pretending you never hit a wall in the first place. True healing is about accepting that this painful period of emptiness was a valid, necessary chapter in your personal story. It is the realization that you cannot simply cut out the dark days or paste over the moments where you fell apart on your kitchen floor. Those moments belong to you just as much as your victories do, and they carry a profound wisdom that you couldn't have learned anywhere else. We often try to reject our low moments, wanting only the versions of ourselves that are vibrant, incredibly productive, and smiling. We look at our periods of burnout and depression with a sense of shame, wanting to hurry past them and hide them from view. But we are whole individuals, meant to experience the full, rich spectrum of human existence, including the cold winters of the soul. We cannot have the spring without the winter. Reflecting on this deep journey of self-realization and acceptance, Carl Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Your current state of depletion is something that happened to you, a natural, unavoidable consequence of overextended energy, unmanaged stress, or prolonged self-abandonment. It is the result of a life that became too heavy to carry. But it does not define your future, and it does not dictate who you will be tomorrow. You get to choose how you piece yourself back together. As you sit among the fragments of your old routine, you have the rare opportunity to decide which commitments to leave behind in the dust and which true values to carry forward into your new life. You don't have to put everything back exactly the way it was. You can choose to leave out the things that caused you to break. Integrating the pieces means looking at your vulnerability and no longer seeing it as a flaw. It means recognizing that your capacity to feel deeply, to give to others, and to work hard must be balanced by an equal capacity to protect yourself, to rest, and to receive love. When you integrate your exhaustion, you stop viewing it as a shameful failure and start viewing it as a profound turning point. It becomes the moment you finally grew up enough to realize that you cannot save the world if you are destroying yourself in the process. You begin to hold both sides of your story, the strength that got you through the hard times, and the softness that saved you when you were completely empty, knowing that both are required to make you a whole, beautiful human being. Rebuilding your spirit is not a linear path with a clear beginning and a neat conclusion. You will not wake up one Tuesday morning and find that the exhaustion has completely vanished, never to return. Instead, it is a slow, rhythmic unfolding. You will have beautiful days where you feel a sudden surge of renewed energy, a genuine desire to create, and a lightness in your chest that you haven't felt in years. And then, just as surely, you will have days where the heavy, familiar fog returns for an afternoon, making your limbs feel weighted down and your heart feel tired again. That is not a sign that you are sliding backward, nor does it mean you are failing at your recovery. It is simply the natural tide of healing. As you step forward from this quiet place of emptiness, remember to move with an immense amount of patience. Treat yourself with the exact same gentleness, tenderness, and grace you would offer to a beloved friend who is slowly recovering from a long, grueling physical illness. You wouldn't expect them to run a race the day after their fever breaks. Do not expect yourself to be perfectly productive just because you've had a few days of rest. The bright spark you thought you lost forever hasn't vanished from this earth. It was never permanently extinguished. It was simply buried beneath the heavy ash of fatigue, waiting quietly for you to create the safe, dark, and still space it needed to breathe again. As you walk forward into this next chapter, you will notice that you are changing. You might find that you are less willing to entertain conversations that drain you, less eager to please people who only value your utility, and far more protective of your quiet mornings. You are allowed to be different. You are allowed to carry a quiet no in your pocket, ready to use whenever the world demands too much of you. This new version of you isn't cold. It is simply grounded. It is a version of you that has visited the bottom of the well and has decided with absolute conviction never to let it dry out completely again. You are learning to move through life with a gentler pace, realizing that the world will keep spinning even if you take an hour just to sit and watch the sky. Trust the slow process of your own recovery, even on the days when it feels frustratingly quiet. You have the profound, quiet capacity to heal, to rebuild your life from the foundations up, and to return to your daily routines with a spirit that is not only beautifully restored, but deeply, permanently anchored in who you truly are. You are walking out of the storm now. The light ahead isn't blinding or demanding. It is warm, soft, and welcoming. It is the light of a new day that you get to design on your own terms, one small, conscious breath at a time. Go gently, give yourself time, and remember that simply being alive, right here in this moment, is more than enough. We often look at the end of a long journey and expect a monument, a grand declaration, or a sudden, loud shift in the wind that tells us we have finally arrived. We want a visible marker to prove that the heavy lifting is over and that the pain has officially been transformed into something beautiful. But when it comes to the quiet geography of the human spirit, the return of life doesn't sound like a thunderclap. It feels more like a whispering stream that has finally found its way past the rocks after a long, freezing winter. It is a subtle, almost unnoticeable softening in the way you hold your shoulders when you wake up. It is the realization that you are looking at the world again, rather than just staring through it. If you are reading these words right now, it means you have traveled through the darkest corridors of your own exhaustion. You have sat in the heavy silence of Section 1, recognizing the terrifying weight of an empty well. You have looked at the fragile mask of constant strength in Section 2 and found the immense bravery required to let it crack. You have allowed your heavy armor to fall in Section 3, met the bitter shadow of your boundaries in Section 4, and mourned the profound cost of the unlived life in Section 5. You have slowly pulled your awareness back into your physical body through Section 6, rested in the barren, beautiful fallow ground of Section 7, and built tiny, sacred fortresses using the power of small boundaries in Section 8. And finally, you have gathered the fragmented pieces of your story in Section 9, choosing to walk forward into a gentler, softer light in Section 10. Now, you stand at the edge of that recovery. The epilogue of a depleted spirit isn't about returning to the person you were before the burnout happened. That person, as well-intentioned and hard-working as they were, was the one who drove the vehicle until the engine caught fire. Healing isn't a time machine. It doesn't take you backward. It carries you forward into a completely new way of being. It introduces you to a version of yourself that knows how to survive the emptiness. But more importantly, a version that has decided that survival alone is no longer enough. You are learning how to live in a way that honors your limits, protects your peace, and respects the delicate ecosystem of your inner world. Think about the quiet moments that are waiting for you now. Think about the first time you will sit down with a warm cup of tea or coffee, and instead of rushing through it while mapping out your next 3 obligations, you will simply taste the warmth. You will look out the window at a tree swaying in the breeze, or watch the rain wash across the glass, and you will feel a faint, sweet sensation of content. It won't be an overwhelming high or a dramatic burst of euphoria. It will be something much more durable, peace. It will be the quiet comfort of knowing that you are entirely present in your own life, no longer running away from your exhaustion, and no longer hiding from your own heart. There is a profound, slow magic in realizing that you do not have to earn your right to exist on this planet. You do not have to prove your worth by overextending your spirit until there is nothing left. The trees do not apologize for losing their leaves in the autumn. They do not rush to bloom in the dead of January just to prove they are still alive. They trust the rhythm of the seasons, knowing that the stillness of winter is the very thing that allows the green of summer to return. You are a part of that same natural world. Your periods of emptiness are not a defect in your character. They are a necessary part of your rhythm. They are the times when your soul pulls its energy deep into the earth, down where no one else can see it, so it can rest, repair, and prepare to reach toward the sun once again. As you close this script and step back into the flow of your daily life, the world will undoubtedly try to pull you back into its old, familiar pace. The voices of efficiency, productivity, and endless demand will still be there, shouting from the screens and whispering from the expectations of the people around you. They will tell you to speed up, to say yes, to ignore the tension in your jaw, and to sacrifice your rest for the sake of the grind. But you carry a secret weapon now. You carry the memory of the empty well. You know exactly what it costs to live an unlived life, and you know the terrifying stillness of having absolutely nothing left to give. Let that memory be your compass. Let it be the gentle hand on your shoulder that reminds you to slow down before you break. You are allowed to walk through this world at your own pace. You are allowed to be a person who says, "I love you, but I am too tired to help right now." You are allowed to leave the dishes in the sink, let the messages sit unanswered for an evening, and choose the quiet safety of your own bedroom over the noise of another obligation. This is not selfishness. It is stewardship. It is taking responsibility for the one life you have been given to manage. Every time you protect your energy, you are making the world a slightly better, truer place, because you are refusing to feed the collective illusion that human beings are machines. You are standing up for the beauty of human vulnerability. Carl Jung once suggested that the greatest burden a child can bear is the unlived life of the parent. We can expand that truth to everyone we touch. The greatest burden we can place on our partners, our friends, our children, and our communities is the unlived, unhealed version of ourselves. When we show up to our relationships completely depleted, full of hidden bitterness and silent resentment, we aren't actually giving them love. We are giving them our exhaustion. But when we have the courage to stop, to fill our own wells first, and to protect our inner light, the love we offer to others becomes clean, steady, and real. It becomes a sanctuary for them, because we have built a sanctuary within ourselves. So, let the deep waters return to your well, one slow drop at a time. Do not try to rush the flow. Do not demand that your spirit produce fruit before the roots have even had time to take hold in the soil. Trust the quiet, invisible work that is happening inside you right now, even when it feels like nothing is happening at all. You are clearing the ground. You are laying the foundation. You are learning, perhaps for the very first time, how to love yourself, not for what you can achieve, or what you can perform, or what you can endure, but simply because you are you,